Here I am, now 45 years old. My wife Glenda is a year younger. We've been married for 25 years, so earlier this year we celebrated our silver anniversary. We took a week-long cruise to the Western Caribbean and had a great time. Our son, Alan, just turned 25. After receiving his degree in electrical engineering, he met and married his wife, Brenda, who is a joy to be around. Our daughter, Elise, is a year younger than Alan. Her degree is in music education. She is the assistant choral director at our local high school and loves her job. She recently got married and they are very happy. Neither has given us a grandchild yet. We're actually glad to have a breather to enjoy our empty nest, so we're not pushing either of them about grandchildren. Glenda and I have shared a fantastic marriage. We've always had each other's backs and taken care of each other's needs. She often played the song Bubbly by Colby Caillat and said it perfectly expressed how she felt about me. That girl sure knew how to make me feel loved. We often go out with or visit Bob and Teresa. I've known Bob since junior high school, and we've been best friends ever since. Glenda and I are godparents to their 3 grown and married children, and our kids have always called them Uncle Bob and Aunt Teresa, even though they are not blood relatives. Our kids and theirs act more like brothers and sisters since we've spent so much time together. We've always had a great time with them and have taken more than a few vacations together over the years. Of course, Glenda is the most attractive woman in the world to me, but in all honesty, Teresa comes in a close second. The 4 of us, however, have always respected boundaries. Sure, we've danced with each other's partners, but there has never been any inappropriate behavior. Next to Glenda, I'd probably sacrifice my life to protect Teresa and Bob if need be, and I'm sure they feel the same way. That's how close we are as 2 couples who love each other. Did I say we had a wonderful life? Just when everything seems to be going well, something unexpected happens. Due to some unusual feelings she had about her body, she went to see the doctor about it. She was immediately referred to an oncologist. I accompanied her to her important appointment where she was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic pancreatic cancer. We were told that stage 4 pancreatic cancer cannot be cured or treated. We were told that a person with terminal cancer is actively dying and will usually not live for more than a few months. However, there are treatments that can help a person at this stage of cancer feel better palliative care. Up until she felt something was off, she never even felt sick. The doctor said that it can be easy to miss the signs. A person may not know that they have cancer because they do not feel sick. Even if they do have symptoms, they might not bother them much. The oncologist said that, in his opinion, she had about 6 months left to live. He indicated that the first 4 of those months could still afford her a very good quality of life. The remaining couple of months might be best dedicated to palliative care, managing her pain until she passed. To say this was a shock to us would be an understatement. We soon shared this information with our loved ones. Alan and Elise and their spouses spent a few days at home with us expressing their love and support. They offered to stay indefinitely, but Glenda would not hear of it. She stoically didn't want their lives disrupted any more than necessary. Bob and Teresa were devastated right along with us. We were all very close and their love and support meant the world to us. Glenda knew that they would be there for me for encouragement after she passed, and she pleaded with them to make sure I didn't fall through the cracks and grieve for her for too long. Right in front of our best friends, Glenda urged me to start dating again and remarry after a reasonable period. I wasn't prepared to have that conversation, so I said nothing in response. I felt that she needed to express herself in order to deal with the many emotions she must be grappling with. I loved my wife beyond measure, and I was determined to be the best husband I could be to her right up until the end, no matter how devastating losing her would be to me. I would be there for her. Glenda, being wise, didn't want to waste any time on sadness. I told her that she could quit working, but she insisted that working helped keep her grounded and that she needed it for consistency. But something happened to her desire that I must admit turned out to be a nice bonus for me. She was full of life, and I loved every minute of it. If we weren't home enjoying each other's company, then we were out with Bob and Teresa, laughing and having a great time. Hank, have you been enjoying our love life lately? Yeah, babe. It's as if you're trying to spend every moment with me. I'm not complaining, mind you. Every moment with you is special and unforgettable. That's what I'm trying to do, honey. I won't be around much longer, and I want us to make enough special memories together to last you a lifetime. I don't want to waste a single moment just doing nothing. I figured that's what you were trying to do. I'm all in, Glenda, whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. I'm so glad to hear you say that, Hank. I've been meaning to talk to you about something, and I guess now is just as good of a time as any. Sure, babe. What's on your mind? I don't want to waste time, so I'm just going to say it. Hank, you know that I love you with all of my heart. There's not a single part of my heart that doesn't totally belong to you. You're the perfect husband that any person could ever ask for. And I thank you for giving me a lifetime of happy memories to take with me when I pass on. Glenda, I've loved every moment of our love. I couldn't have asked for a better wife, and I'd love nothing more than for us to continue creating memories together. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wasn't prepared for this. I know she's dying, and she wants to experience life to the fullest, but can't she do that without hurting me? Honey, I hope this is just a phase that you're going through with your renewed desire. Hopefully it will pass soon, or that you're joking and not seriously making this request. Please tell me you're not serious. My head was spinning. This isn't a joke. She wants to be with someone else, and she wants my approval. I would do anything for her, but I can't do that. Glenda, I have loved you since the day we met. You've always been the best wife a person could ever ask for. I'd give anything for you, but I don't see how I can share you with someone else. But before we continue this conversation, who did you have in mind to be with? Were you planning on finding a stranger? Of course not. Don't be silly. I would never risk our health or trust. I've given this a lot of thought, and I have talked extensively with Teresa and Bob. They understand my circumstances. I could never be with a stranger. It would have to be someone I know, love, and respect. Bob is the person I had in mind for just one single weekend. Then that desire would be met, fulfilled, and it would be in the past. So you've already talked to my best friends without my knowledge and convinced Bob to be with you for a whole weekend? I can't believe you would do that. Over 30 years of friendship thrown away. Don't be silly, Hank. They're my best friends too. We're both godparents to their children, not just you. There's no way you'll lose the friendship you have with them. It's strong. You are not the type of person who gives up and throws everything away. You always find a way to work through anything. That's one of the best things about you. Teresa has offered to spend the weekend with you in my place. You'll have so much fun with her that you won't even notice my absence, she insisted. Stunned at her words, I gave her a look of disgust. So you're going to play that card, huh? If I love you? You're not sure that I do, so you say if? What's more, that's a low blow for you to characterize it as a final request. You're not right in the head, sweetheart. This is crazy talk. I just can't go along with such an absurd idea. I'm telling you straight up, if you do, it will be the end of our relationship. Undaunted, she persisted, Hank, since the day we married, you've always exceeded all of my desires and expectations. You've taken me to amazing locations for our vacations. You've always provided the best luxurious cars for me to drive, and you've allowed me to purchase all the clothes and shoes I could ever want. Why is this so different? Did I ever send you on a vacation to be alone with another person? No, it was always you and me. Did you buy those clothes to wear for someone else? No, you bought them to please me. It has always been just the two of us together, Glenda. Perhaps that is too much to ask of you now, but it would ruin our relationship for me. Baby, please think about it this way. After I'm gone, you will likely form close connections with several other people before deciding to date again. I won't ever have that privilege. Can't you see that what I'm asking is only fair? I'm sorry that you've had to make such a huge sacrifice being loyal to me and no one else all this time. Once you're free of me, you can form connections with as many people as you wish. Hell, you won't even have to worry about pregnancy or other complications. You'll have it easier, girl, I said sarcastically. Her anger started rising. Look, I've always put my needs on the back burner and taken care of you and our children. I don't regret a single second of it. Yet now I feel as though you should be a bit more understanding and put your fragile ego on the back burner just this once, and let me have this, she logically explained. Let me ask you, Glenda. If you weren't dying, would your bucket list still have eventually presented itself and induced you to want to have a relationship with someone else? Be honest. I don't know, maybe. Well, thank you for being honest. I'm sorry that I'm not enough for you. She winced but pressed on. Let me ask you a question, Hank. If I had never gotten sick, and I asked you for permission to be with someone else, would you selfishly deny me the experience? Of course not. Once we were no longer together, you could have all the experiences you want with whoever you want to be with, as often as you'd like, except you'd never again get to experience me. She ignored my threat and continued unabated. Haven't you always wanted me to have everything? You've always provided me more than I have ever asked for. Would you start denying me now as I share my final request? Glenda, I once believed that I was your everything. Thank you for showing me the error of my ways and teaching me that it's not true. She began crying and ran out of the room. Normally I'd try to comfort her, but this was different. I hope she changes her mind about wanting this. I overheard her talking on the phone with someone, but couldn't make out what was being said. 10 minutes later, I heard a car pulling into our driveway. Bob and Teresa didn't just decide out of the blue to visit. This is an ambush. As she headed towards the front door to greet them and let them in, I quietly slipped out the back door and went for a stroll around the neighborhood. I had left my phone on the kitchen table, so it would be difficult to get in touch with me. I certainly had much to think about as I walked. When I returned about 90 minutes later, their car was gone, so I felt as though their attempt to surprise me had failed. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. Bob and Teresa stopped by for a visit, and we had no idea where you were. Glenda said worriedly, when you were upset earlier, I felt we both could use some space, so I went for a walk around the neighborhood. I don't recall Bob and Teresa saying they were going to visit today. What's going on? She gave me a distasteful glance. They were running errands and just happened to be nearby, so they stopped in for a quick visit. We've both dropped in on each other many times over the years. You know that. It's a shame you missed them. They wanted to talk with you about our earlier conversation. I assure you that their eagerness is completely one-sided. I have no desire to talk to either of them about the bombshell you dropped on me earlier, but they're our best friends, your best friends. Who better to talk to about what's on your mind? They were my best friends, but that changed today. From now on, they're your best friends. I will no longer have anything to do with either of them. You can't mean that, Hank. Why are you being so stubborn about this? All I did was have a conversation with you, nothing more. Are you willing to throw away a lifelong friendship without even talking to them? You're a better person than that. I know you are, and so does Bob. I assume you talked to them about our earlier conversation while they were here? Of course I did. What do you expect? They're our closest friends. That's what friends do, listen to each other and support one another through difficult times. I figured as much. And what advice did dear old Bob have to offer about our issues? They both understand both sides of our situation. And even though Bob has been your best friend for most of your life, he realizes that you're not the one who's dying. He said we should make special arrangements to accommodate requests made by those who won't be here much longer. It makes sense to me. I agree with him. And what, dear wife, was his advice? I asked sarcastically. She grimaced before saying, he said it was easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. You will receive neither from me, I seethed before walking away. If Bob and Teresa weren't history to me before, they certainly are now. The friendship is over, and I will make sure to limit all contact with Bob at work to a professional level only. We work in different areas, so that shouldn't be a problem. Later that evening, Glenda gradually sparked my desire and used it to have her way with me again. Hank, honey, there's something I want to say before you leave for work. Tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to drive over to Bob and Teresa's house. He and I will leave from there. He told me that he's tried numerous times to talk to you to address your concerns, but you refuse to speak with him about anything other than work issues. He said you also refuse to answer his personal calls and texts. Teresa said you no longer respond to her either. I'll be back here Sunday afternoon very eager to be with you. I'm telling you this now because I want to make sure you come straight home after work, okay? My world was falling apart before my eyes. Everything will change after tomorrow. She seems determined to go through with it. I will never speak to Bob or Teresa again and have nothing to do with our godchildren. The betrayal of all three of you is worse than you can possibly imagine. If you cross that line, I will never touch you again, I sadly stated. She teared up upon hearing such strong resistance from me. But Bob and Teresa had convinced her that I would change my mind and forgive her afterward. It was unimaginable to her that I would not be there for her as she passes from this world to the next. When I'm done spending quality time with you this evening, my dear husband, and you will know without a doubt just how much I love and need you in my life. But I also need something else. I'm sorry you can't understand my feelings this time and grant me my dying wish. She moved to give me a goodbye hug as usual in the mornings. I avoided it and quickly left the house. As I walked away, I heard her crying. I hoped that she would reconsider before it was too late. During my lunch break, I came back home. I needed to find out the truth. I discovered a suitcase packed and hidden under the bed. Inside, I found clothes that she had never worn for me before. Maybe it was her way of keeping Bob and me separate. It was clear that she had made her decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. Before heading back to work, I sent her a quick text from my phone. I've been asked to work late tonight on a special project. Sorry, I'm not sure when I'll be home. I'm begging you to reconsider your decision about going with him. Then I left my phone openly on the kitchen table. I didn't want to be there for the planned event tonight. I wanted her to think about it and hopefully change her mind. Bob caught me off guard at work. Hank, you need to come down from that stubborn position you're on, buddy. Think about Glenda for once and not yourself. This is her dying wish. I can't deny her that, can't you see? What I see is my so-called best friend telling me that he's going to be with my wife just to make her happy. I can't stop you two from ruining my marriage, but you should know that there will be consequences for your actions. If you touch Glenda, then you, Teresa, and my 3 godchildren will mean nothing to me anymore. It will end my marriage and destroy our friendship. I guess you'll be Glenda's new companion because I won't be with her after you've been with her. Hank, this isn't like you. You're better than this. You don't really mean what you're saying. You know I understand you better than anyone. I don't care what you think you know. I meant every word. Now get out of my office. Or do you want to explain to the boss why you're wasting my time? Bob knew Hank's moods and realized that he couldn't reason with him in his current state. He needed to let Hank cool down. Bob hoped that Glenda's special evening would help bring peace between them and lead to a better outcome. I was furious and shaking with anger. Nothing they said could make me change my mind. It seemed like Bob and Teresa valued Glenda's friendship more than they valued mine. I'm usually an understanding guy, but there are lines that should never be crossed. I left work a few minutes early so Bob couldn't bother me again. I drove straight to the gym. I have a membership there that I rarely use, but today I decided to take advantage of it. I didn't want to be too sore tomorrow, but I needed to release my anger on the machines. As I mindlessly went through my workout, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions: sadness, anger, helplessness, and back to sadness. I even shed some tears, but I made sure not to sob in front of others. After showering, I left the gym at 7:30. It was a form of therapy, but it didn't solve my problems. I went to Harper's restaurant, a place that Glenda and I loved for special occasions. Remembering the memories we shared there was both bitter and sweet. As I contemplated my options, I wondered if I was truly stubborn enough to follow through with the threats I made earlier. Were my principles worth sacrificing everything for? We had 25 beautiful years together before all of this happened. I never imagined I would be facing this situation with her. I thought about confronting Bob, but I couldn't risk hurting Glenda even more. He knows exactly how I feel and what I'm capable of. Yet, he still plans to go ahead with it. Even if I threatened his life to stay away from her, she had already admitted that she might have reached this point in the future, even without her cancer diagnosis. Later that evening, when Glenda saw her husband's cell phone lying on the kitchen table at home, she became very worried. She wasn't sure when exactly he had left it there, but it may have been around the time he sent her the text about working late. "Hey Bob, it's Glenda. I recognize your sweet voice anywhere, silly. How's everything at home with Hank?" "I hope it's peaceful," Bob asked. "That's exactly why I'm calling. Do you have any idea why Hank would be working late tonight? He sent me a text at noon saying he would be working late on a special project." I have no clue what Hank could be referring to. I left work a little late myself today, finishing up some loose ends, and the parking lot was empty. Hank's car was already gone when I left. Even though we don't work in the same department, I would have heard about any special projects or overtime work. Have you tried calling him? That's the thing, Bob. I did as soon as I got home because I wanted to know when he'd be home, but his phone was on the kitchen table. So I have no way of reaching him if he's not at work like you said. Didn't you tell me you planned to give him a very special romantic evening that would leave him weak in the knees tonight? Yes, I did. I made sure he knew that this morning, so the only conclusion I can draw is that he's avoiding me. What am I supposed to do, Bob? Glenda, I know your husband. He's just having a pity party. He's playing a childish game to try and ruin your plans. If he chooses to miss out on tonight's time with you, then he's being foolish. He doesn't realize how lucky he is to have you. After you're gone, he'll look back on this and regret missing every moment he could have spent in your loving embrace. Hank is a good man, my best friend, but sometimes even good people make mistakes. You know what you want and you deserve it, and he's trying to spoil your happiness. Look, honey, if you want to cancel, I'll understand. No, Bob, that's not what I'm saying. I've already endured too much pain from him about this to cancel at the last minute. You're right, Bob. If he misses out tonight, then it's his loss. It will allow me to save more energy for being with you this weekend. I can't express how much I'm looking forward to it. Thank you and Teresa so much. That's the spirit, Glenda. Hopefully Hank will come to his senses and spend some wonderful time with you. Thanks, Bob. I feel a lot better now. I'll wait for him to come home, but I still plan on leaving around 9. I'll be at your place shortly after. Nothing would make me happier, Glenda. I promise to give you my absolute best this weekend, holding nothing back. I hope it's everything you've dreamed of. I'm sure it will be. See you soon, Bob. Bye. As I sat at the restaurant, I considered my options. If Glenda went with Bob, I would never be with her again. She would be willingly breaking her wedding vows. This was a conscious decision she made with a clear mind. On top of that, it was a triple betrayal. Not only was I losing my wife, but also my 2 closest friends at the same time. They were all involved in Glenda's betrayal. I could never do to Bob what he was doing to me in my marriage, no matter how much Teresa might beg me in the same situation. They would all mean nothing to me anymore. Divorce? I could serve her the papers to make a statement, but it would be a costly move since she would pass away before the divorce was finalized. There was no need to waste money. Haitian money. I never thought she would cheat on me. Now that I couldn't trust her, I needed to take steps to protect my finances. Who knows what she might do next? I arrived home at 9:30 that night. She was gone. She must have been with Bob. I had never felt so sad and alone. The pain of losing her was unbearable, but I knew I had to continue with my plans. I found an envelope on the kitchen table with my name on it, which Glenda must have left for me. It was beneath her cell phone. She probably didn't want to be disturbed this weekend. I decided not to open the envelope and left it untouched. When I checked my phone for messages, I saw that she had called and texted earlier, worried about my silence. She promised to make it up to me when she returned, assuring me of her love and loyalty. But those words meant nothing to me anymore. I deleted all the messages. First, I moved all of my belongings from the master bedroom to the spare bedroom. I made sure to erase any trace that I had been in that room. Then, I found our wedding album and removed all the pictures where I appeared. I cut myself out completely, erasing any evidence of my presence. I put the album back together and left it on her bed, the bed that used to be ours. I called my brother and asked if I could stay with his family for a few nights. He happily invited me to stay in his spare basement bedroom for as long as I needed. I took one of Glenda's sleep aid tablets to help me rest. Medications can sometimes be quite effective. I was woken up at 9:15 a.m. by the doorbell. I threw on a robe and went to the front door. "What are you doing here, Teresa? I thought I made things clear to Bob yesterday." "Good morning, Hank." "I could have used our key, you know," Teresa replied. "We've both had spare keys to each other's homes for years. May I come in?" She was right. I had forgotten about that. I was about to make a mental note to change the locks when I realized that Glenda would simply give them another key, so I let go of that idea. What you have to say can be said from right where you are. You still haven't answered my question. What are you doing here? Well, if someone would answer their phone, I wouldn't have to come over here to see you, she said. For the third and last time, Teresa, why are you here? I'm here for you, Hank, for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I'm here to check on you and see how you're doing. Glenda told me that you were unhappy with the arrangement, so I'm here to help you deal with it. After all, you're one of my 2 best friends in the whole world. Help me deal with it, huh? And just how do you plan to help me do that, Teresa? Whatever it takes, Hank. I'm here for you in any way that you need me to be. If you just want a friend to talk to, that's me. If you need someone to help around the house or cook for you, that's me too. If you need someone to comfort you and make you feel better, that's me again. The 3 of us agreed that you could have me just like they have each other this weekend. Clearly, the 3 of you have agreed to many things that I strongly disagree with. Now, if you don't mind, I have a lot to do today. You've come at a very inconvenient time. Please leave now and don't come back. If you use that key that I no longer want you to have, I'll call the police and report an unwanted intruder. Have a good life, Teresa, I said as I closed the door in her face. I watched from a window as she walked out to her car. She was crying on the phone with someone. Bob, I presumed. I couldn't understand what would make her cry. Perhaps he or Glenda wanted an update on my emotional state. I tried to express my displeasure with the situation to Teresa as gently as possible. She sat in her car for about 5 minutes, but as if unsure if leaving me upset was the right thing to do. Finally, she drove away. After having cereal for breakfast, I went to a large store and bought a pair of identical door lock sets. I installed one on the spare bedroom door and the other on the hall bathroom door. Since I had the only keys, I felt comfortable knowing I had some privacy. Next, I went online and removed my phone from our shared phone account. Then, I opened a new phone account in my name only, so Glenda wouldn't have access to it. I transferred my phone to the new account and paid a fee to change my number. No one would be able to reach me unless I gave them my new number. As a final act, I took off my wedding ring and made it unable to be worn again without repair. I left the crushed ring on top of Glenda's phone on the kitchen table as a symbolic gesture. I packed a few clothes and toiletries in a gym bag and took my brother and his family out for lunch on Sunday at a nice family restaurant. It was the least I could do since they are providing me with a break from the drama for a couple of days. Glenda said she'd be back Sunday afternoon. I wanted to leave before she arrived. It was a fun time with my brother's family. When Glenda came home on Sunday afternoon from her weekend away with Bob, she expected to find a sad husband she could try to comfort. She was unhappy to find him gone. How could she regain what they had if he wasn't there? She thought he might be running an errand until she went to unpack in the master bedroom. She saw their wedding album on the bed and started sobbing when she noticed he had cut himself out of every picture. She suddenly realized that all of his clothes were gone too. Had he moved out? She noticed the sealed letter she had left for him unopened on the bed. When she dialed Hank's number to find out what was going on, she heard a message saying that the number she dialed was no longer in service. Things were getting worse by the second. This wasn't the reaction Bob had told her about. He had reassured her that there was no way Hank could live without her. As she urgently checked the rest of the house, she noticed the new locks on the spare bedroom door. She felt relieved that perhaps he had not left her after all, but he was just having a small temper tantrum by moving his things to another room. Uncertain as to who to contact first, Glenda called Teresa to find out if Hank had mentioned anything to her about his plans when she visited him on Saturday morning. No, Glenda. When I called Bob that morning, I told him everything Hank had said, which wasn't much. I have to admit, it hurt when Hank rejected me so strongly. What's happening? Glenda filled her in on everything she had discovered upon her return. Bob and Teresa listened as Glenda explained via speakerphone. Bob chimed in, but didn't you leave Hank the letter explaining that you were going to quit your job tomorrow and spend time making him happy? Yes, Bob, I wrote that letter just as you suggested, but he never opened it or read it. It's still here, sealed, she cried. Don't worry, Glenda. It's clear that he's just moved his things to the spare bedroom for a day or two as a way to get back at you. It's just a small fit of anger, nothing more. He'll be back with you soon enough. I promise. I hope you're right. Thanks for supporting me at least. Glenda said gratefully. Glenda then tried calling Hank's brother and parents. His parents had no idea, and his brother said he hadn't heard from him, which is what Hank had asked him to say. Glenda figured that it was her turn to be patient, just like Hank had to be during her absence over the weekend. However, Hank's absence was painful. She had never felt disconnected from him in any way before, and it was an unbearable feeling. She shed many tears before finally crying herself to sleep alone in her bed for the night. At 6:30 a.m. On Monday, I called work before the office opened and left a voicemail for my boss, informing him that I would be taking 2 personal days off due to a family emergency that required my attention. I didn't want to interact with Bob yet, nor did I want them to have access to me during the day at my work number. I decided to move some money around just in case Glenda decided to spend it carelessly. We had saved a significant amount of money over the years, and I wanted to protect it. I spent the majority of the day transferring 2/3 of our cash and investments into accounts that I solely owned. Unless she searched for it, she shouldn't notice the changes as long as all the bills continued to be paid. It took up most of the day, but I was glad to have a break from the drama. However, I knew that when I returned home, things would get messy. On Tuesday morning, I went for a relaxing walk in the park and had lunch at a nearby diner. The movie theaters typically don't open until noon on weekdays, so I leisurely entertained myself in the afternoon. Tuesday night brought back some tension, knowing that Glenda would confront me. I made a promise to myself not to engage in a heated argument with her. I thanked my brother and his family again for giving me a safe space to gather my thoughts and find resolution. On Wednesday morning, I returned to work where I belonged. I said nothing to my boss about the exact nature of my family situation, and he respected my privacy by not prying. I appreciated his professionalism. As soon as Bob discovered my presence at work, he hurried to my office. "Well, it's about time you showed up. Have you talked to Glenda yet? She's really worried about you," Bob declared. He closed the door behind him as he entered my office. I ignored him, walked to the door, and reopened it to remove any privacy between us. When he moved to close it again, I held onto it and left the office without acknowledging him or his personal questions. He followed me for a short distance, calling after me as I headed to the men's room on the other side of the building. I remained unresponsive. I had made up my mind that I wouldn't have any further communication with Teresa or Bob. I knew Glenda would keep them informed about everything I said, but I wouldn't acknowledge them. I was certain that Bob would inform Glenda of seeing me. She soon called me 4 times in a row. I put each call on hold, listening to the hold music until she gave up. As I left the office at the end of the day, Bob said nothing but followed me until I pulled into a restaurant. I didn't want my evening ruined by intense emotional conversations. He waited until I left and followed me again. I saw him on the phone as I neared my house. I knew who he was talking to. Glenda would be expecting me. As I pulled into the driveway, she ran out to greet me, arms open wide for a hug. I quickly grabbed my gym bag and held it in front of me to create some distance as we entered the house. A tearful Glenda began, "Where in the world have you been, Hank? Do you have any idea how worried I've been? I've not had a moment's peace until you walked into the house just now. Don't you ever scare me like that again, you hear? I may have some idea of how worried you might have been. Were you as worried that I was out with another friend as I was about you being close to another person? I seriously doubt it. After all, that would be betraying our trust, wouldn't it? I hope your friend, Teresa, set you straight that I didn't even allow her inside the house. Not for a moment. Her unhappy expression confirmed her understanding of my crass remark. I was proud of myself for not raising my voice. Hank, I know you're upset, and that's why we need to talk this through and put it behind us. You have no idea how anxious I am to spend time with you tonight. I plan to spend quality time with you. I've just come from having eaten, Glenda. I'm sure your friend filled you in, so now is not a good time for me. As a matter of fact, I can't imagine that there will ever be a good time for such a thing. Our relationship has been ruined by that terrible incident. There's no way I can connect with you emotionally now. Just the thought of spending time with you makes me feel sick. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm going to bed. Good night. Don't you dare walk away from me, Hank. I nearly lost my mind worried sick about you, and you come in here and just dismiss me out of hand. That's not going to work, mister. I want you beside me tonight, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Look, Glenda, I just walked in the door and I'm tired. Let me get a shower and change. I promise we'll talk later, after I've cleaned up, okay? Stunned that I was uncharacteristically expressing no interest in being close to her, she agreed to my request. I carried my bag to my bedroom and locked the door behind me. After stripping down to my boxers, I carried fresh clothes with me into the hall bath where I took a long hot shower. This was going to be a difficult night. There's no other way around it. To her credit, she left me alone. I'm certain she had already seen the lock on the hall bath door, so she didn't even try to open it while I was showering. I dressed and took my dirty boxers, towel, and washcloth back to my room and locked it. I made a mental note to start doing all of my own laundry from now on. She was waiting for me in the den, seated on the couch dressed in a see-through nightgown and nothing else, as if she was eager for something. I sat on the matching single chair adjacent to the couch. My choice of seating obviously annoyed her. Come over here, big guy, and sit beside me. I have a lot to tell you and a lot to show you, she commanded in a romantic voice. I can hear you just fine from here. What is it that you want to tell me? I'm listening. Disappointed yet undeterred. I love you, you big goof, and I know you love me just as much. You and I are perfect for each other and belong together forever. I know someday I'll pass away, but I'll wait for you patiently until you join me one day. Until then, I hope you have a long, happy, and fulfilling life. Yes, that means other people might come into your life. We both know that will be the case. I don't want to waste a single moment without you by my side. I want us to put this issue behind us right here and now, never to be revisited. I want you to let me love you like you've never been loved before until the day I die. That's what I want, Hank, plain and simple. I have some questions before we continue. Of course, Hank, go ahead. Did you spend time with Bob last weekend? She silently nodded. Did you spend time with Bob and allow him to? Bob said it would be for the best not to give you any details. He said it might upset you too much. Oh, I see. So that person is now in charge of our marriage? You've told me what I needed to know. Good night, Glenda. I stood up, prepared to leave the room. Okay. I'll answer your questions, I promise. Please sit back down, she pleaded. She nervously regained her composure as I sat down. To answer your question, yes, I spent time with him. One more question. I need to know how many moments you had with him over the weekend, in total. I don't know, Hank, I swear. I didn't count them or keep track. Think back to the weekend, Glenda. I don't need an exact number. Give me your best estimate. How many times, in general, do you think you were with him? Give me something. She paused and turned her eyes up in her head, as if she was recalling every experience before responding. I'm not sure, somewhere between 12 and 20? That's the best number I can give you. I see. Thank you for your candid responses. Those memories will stay with me until the day I die. Because of what you allowed him to do, our love is ruined. You gave away something that I thought was only ours. I hope you cherish the memories you made with him, Glenda, because you will always know that the last person you were with was not your spouse. Also, that person and his spouse are no longer friends of mine. You can visit them, but I do not want to be in their presence ever again. I can't avoid seeing that person at work every now and then, but I can ignore him just as I did the other day. This is the life you have chosen for yourself, Glenda. I hope it was worth it. No, this isn't how this is supposed to be. If you'll just let me show you how much I love you tonight, you'll see. You won't have to do a thing but be there. I'll make you feel incredible, I promise. She sobbed in broken phrases. Before you left for the weekend, I told you exactly what the consequences would be. But instead of believing me, your spouse, you believed the words of that person. You made a mistake in who you trusted. You've created this situation, as they say. Now you must accept it, I stated with emphasis. Stop calling him that terrible name. He's your best friend, after all. He was your best friend before you even met me. There are friends now. You're just upset. I understand that. Bob told me you might need some time to calm down. He's right about that. I figure I might calm down somewhere around, say 6 months? Her eyes grew wide open. 6 months. But I'll be long gone before then, Hank. You can't mean that. We need to get past this now. Just give me a chance to help you get past it. I'll make you feel amazing. I'm sorry, Glenda. I'm not in the mood for that. Intentionally making yourself sick is not on my agenda. Are you leaving me, Hank? Are you saying this is the end of us? She meekly squeaked in high-pitched tones. I thought long and hard about that while you were experiencing last weekend with another person. As you know, I'm not the kind of person who breaks my promises, even though you admit to doing just that. I'll keep and honor my promises until death do us part. I will be faithful to you even though you are not faithful to me. I'll continue living here in this house with you, but in separate bedrooms. I'll make sure our bills are paid and I'll take care of the household chores that I usually do. I'm not going anywhere. I'll not abandon you. In sickness and in health, remember, all I ask is that you not invite that person and his spouse over here ever again. If you do, please let me know in advance so I can make other plans until you tell me they're gone. What have I done? I have ruined us. No, Hank. If what you say is true, it wasn't worth it. 1,000 weekends with him or anyone else wouldn't be worth it. My only hope is that you can find it in your heart to forgive me before it's too late. I'm sorry, Hank. I'm sorry for what I've done to us. The heart doesn't always listen to what the brain says it should never do. One more thing I ask of you, Glenda. Since you will no longer be with me, if you do ever engage in that with that person again, or anyone else for that matter, please do me the favor of not doing it in this house. Meet with your partners somewhere else, but don't bring any of them home with you. Can you at least do that? I will not ask about your personal life. The hair on the back of her neck rose as she became indignant. Now you listen to me, and you listen to me well. That was a one-time thing. Do you understand me? It will never happen again. I promise that I'll never be with another person besides you. I heard you make that same promise on our wedding day. You'll forgive me for having trouble believing you." She began sobbing uncontrollably. I went up to my bedroom, shut and locked the door, and left her grieved on the couch. I was able to leave for work and avoid her the next morning. It was mid-morning when the person stormed into my office. "I'm not leaving here, Hank, until you talk to me. What you're doing to that wonderful woman is unforgivable. I'm going to talk to you as long as it takes to get you to change your mind." I picked up the phone and called my boss. "Hi, Dennis. I have a problem I hope you can help me with. Bob is in my office right now wanting to take up my time with matters not involving work. He's interfering with my ability to do my job. Is there someone you can call or something you can do to stop him from bothering me? I want nothing to do with him." Pregnant pause. "Thanks, Dennis, I appreciate it. Are you serious? You're not man enough to talk to me face to face, so you call for help?" Something like that I flatly stated as my office phone rang. "Yes, sir, I'll put him on. It's for you," I glibly stated as I handed Bob the phone. "Hello? Yes, sir? That's right, but I understand, sir. It won't happen again." Defeated, he handed me the receiver. "This isn't over, Hank. I won't put my job in jeopardy by approaching you here at work anymore. But this isn't over by a long shot. We have too much history for things to end this way." I kept looking at the papers on my desk, wordlessly ignoring his rant until he turned and walked out the door. I was glad it happened. He would be closely monitored now. He knew I'd report any further incidents of bother at work, and he needed this job as much as I did. I took solace in that. If he contacts me outside of work, I'll deal with it at the time. Time is on my side. According to the doctors, Glenda has less than 2 good months left before she starts her downward spiral. Although it will be difficult, I can manage 2 months of hard times if I have to. I showed up that evening after work after having visited a family restaurant. One reason was to limit my exposure to Glenda by not allowing her to cook for me. Another reason is that she'll be out of the picture altogether in a few months, and I'll have to fend for myself at mealtimes anyway. I might as well scope out decent places to catch a meal at fair prices, which is difficult to do in this economy. As expected, she'd cooked for us. "Hi, honey. I fixed your favorite. I hope you're hungry. I noticed you're a bit late coming home from work, but I kept it warm for us. Sit down and I'll fix you a plate," she said sweetly. "I'm sorry, but I've already eaten. That's why I'm late. As you said, you won't be around much longer, so I am familiarizing myself with dining venues around town to prepare me for after you're gone. I apologize. I don't mean for you to waste your time, energy, and food on me. I should have told you that I'll be eating all meals out from now on. That should lighten your burden some, not having to look after me anymore. You jerk. You're going to take that away from me too? You've made it clear that I'm off limits, but I was hoping you'd be reasonable and let me continue to cook for you. Am I nothing to you now? Is that it? I can't say the words you want to hear, Glenda. You say you're sorry you cheated. I'm sorry there are consequences for your actions. Neither of us is happy with the circumstances, but they are what they are. I'm going up to my room now." She began crying again. "Hank, you don't need to hide up in your room all the time. Can't you at least watch TV down here or something? I don't have the plague and I can't infect you with my illness. Please don't shut me out completely." I stopped in my tracks. "I'll consider it under 2 conditions I offered." "Name them," she responded. Number 1, no mention whatsoever of that weekend or what it has cost us. I don't want to be overwhelmed by attempts to make me listen to your idea of reason. And the other? Don't ever mention that person or their spouse to me ever again. If you decide to spend time with them at some point, don't ever tell me about it, neither beforehand nor afterward. Agreed? She looked sad that I was taking such a hard stance against the 2 people she loved nearly as much as me. Agreed. To her credit, she never asked for the remote. Whatever I wanted to watch was what we watched. Perhaps she felt that she was at least giving me the tiniest bit that I would allow her to do. Our conversation was limited to work, politics, family, or mundane home issues. She honored her word about not bringing up contentious topics, though I knew they were bubbling just beneath the surface. If she ever talked to my ex-friends on the phone, she did it out of earshot. She knew them to be one of my most sensitive triggers, and we at least had a truce of sorts. Late at night, every night, I could hear her crying herself to sleep alone in her bedroom. To be honest, I don't believe that she regretted her time with them. Her only regret, in my opinion, is enduring the consequences and aftermath. Then she pulled a fast one on me. Saturday morning, she asked if she could go with me out to eat breakfast and lunch since I was no longer allowing her to prepare my meals. I thwarted that by fixing myself a bowl of milk and cereal for breakfast before heading outdoors to mow and trim the yard. I was thoughtful enough to wash and dry my dishes afterward. Outdoor work was usually my responsibility, so I continued doing it. I called a local pizza place that also served subs and had them deliver my sub sandwich to the house for lunch, so I could keep working on vehicle maintenance. She was doing laundry and asked me to put my dirty clothes in with hers so she could wash them all. I politely declined, stating that I didn't have much and would take care of it myself. She teared up once again and sadly walked away. Who knew a woman would cry at the thought of her husband washing his own clothes? Of course, since my bedroom was locked, she couldn't change my sheets or make my bed either. I was glad to have such tasks to occupy my time, affording me less time to feel my own painful loss. At 3 p.m. that afternoon, I heard some commotion in the house. Our children, Alan and our daughter-in-law, Brenda, along with Elise and our son-in-law, Edward, were in the kitchen happily chatting with their mom. I went in to greet them and asked what the occasion was. This was an unexpected visit. Alan spoke for the group. "Hey, Dad. It's great to see you two," he affirmed as he gave me a man hug. We've all been keeping closer contact with Mom since her diagnosis. She says she doesn't have a lot of good days left, so we thought we'd bring over some burgers and hot dogs today and have ourselves a nice cookout. Don't worry, but you and Mom don't need to lift a finger. We know our way around and the four of us will take care of everything, including cleanup if you can believe that after our childhood, he joked. Don't get me wrong, I love having the kids over. But this was no coincidence. I'm certain that Glenda was behind this supposed selfless occasion. What's the saying? All's fair in love and war. We weren't exactly at war, but close enough to warrant her using the kids against me, I guessed. After an hour, I was informed that the grill had been meticulously cleaned and was ready for use. The girls had the salad ingredients cut up and mixed. The meat was in the refrigerator and everything seemed ready to go. Then Glenda came to me. "Hank, honey, the kids have requested homemade ice cream. As you know, the recipe I use is cooked, and I don't have all the ingredients. I'm just going to pop over to the supermarket and pick up the missing items. I'll be back in a jiffy," she happily said. As soon as her car left the garage, I felt as if I was surrounded by 4 interrogators from the Spanish Inquisition. This time, my daughter, Elise, took the lead. "Daddy, is it okay if we talk with you for a few minutes?" she asked ever so politely. "Of course, sweetheart. My door is always open to all of you." She smiled sweetly, then began. "Daddy, as you know, Mom and I talk quite often. She's more likely to share girl talk with me than she might be with Alan. First and foremost, the 4 of us want to make sure that you know that we all love you. We love Mom too, and that's why we want to speak to you to get your side of things. Everyone in this room wants what's best for Mom until she passes. You know better than we do that she doesn't have a lot of time left, so we want her to be able to make the best of what time she has left. Daddy, we know what Mom did with Uncle Bob that weekend. She confessed it to me while you were gone for those couple of days. Like you, we were surprised at first, but after having some time to reflect on it, we've come to better understand and appreciate her position. We get why it was hard for you to deal with at first, but you've had some time to make your peace with it. She swears that it will never be repeated, and we believe her. This was just a bucket list item for her that she wanted to experience before she died. Is that so hard to understand and forgive? She says that you haven't shown any affection towards her since that weekend. She also says you've cut Uncle Bob and Aunt Teresa out of your life as well. Dad, they've always been your best friends forever. Can't you see that all Uncle Bob was doing was granting the wish of a dying woman? You could have had Aunt Teresa that weekend too, but you just blew up like a stick of dynamite. So you 4 believe that I should simply forgive and forget, huh? Is that right? All 4 of them nodded. I took inventory of my sad thoughts as I stood before the only ones left in the world that I loved more than my own life. I had to be careful. I did not want to get argumentative and alienate the 4 of them. Then an idea was fostered in the back of my mind. Alan, you're my family. You know that I would do anything for you without a second thought, right? Sure, Dad, you've always been there for me. There's no doubt about that. And Brenda, as my son's wife, you know that I love you too, don't you? And that I would do anything for you as well without hesitation. I asked her. Of course, Dad. And that love goes both ways. All of us love you and Mom equally. We would all be willing to sacrifice anything for both of you because we love you both so much, she assured. I'm so glad to hear you say that, Brenda. I believe you. That's why it makes it much easier to ask this next question. As you know, I'm getting older, and because of your mother's actions, I have been thinking a lot about things I want to do before it's too late. So, Alan, would you be willing to let Brenda spend a weekend with me as a way for me to fulfill a personal goal? I believe that if she and I spent some time together, it would show me that you trust and support me, just like I trust and support you. If you agree to that, then maybe I can find it in my heart to forgive your mother. What? Are you serious? Alan exclaimed. Brenda blushed at the idea of the invitation. There's no way I'd ever agree to that, Dad, not even if it was a life or death situation. I realize that Brenda isn't your blood relative, but that would still be something I could never accept. I can't believe you would even suggest such a thing, he expressed. Oh, you mean like Uncle Bob and your mom? That kind of thing? I mentioned. What had been said sank in for all of us. I let it sink in for a moment before speaking again. Brenda, I owe both you and my son an apology. I would never ask something like that of you, even if it was a dire situation. I asked that just now to prove a point. Alan, you said you wouldn't agree to it even in a life or death situation. Neither would I. It's easier for you to forgive your mom because you're not married to her. But think about this, Alan. If Brenda had gone with me and came back to you, would you ever look at her the same? Could you forgive her as easily as you're asking me to forgive your mother? There was silence in the room as we all considered the logic of my words. Without a word, Alan nodded at Edward and they shook hands. Then Elise hugged Brenda. I was unsure of what was happening, but I hoped it wouldn't lead to another argument. Alan spoke up again. Dad, you're right. Thank you for being a good father and showing us another important life lesson. We only saw this situation from Mom's perspective, but we hadn't thought about it from every angle. We understand now. We still love Mom, but we won't pressure you to forgive her. We won't let her manipulate us into forcing you either. I'm so proud of all of you. I couldn't ask for anything more. Thank you for understanding. I never wanted any of you to turn your backs on your mother. She'll need you all when the end comes, and I know you'll be there for her. I hugged all four of them in turn. I felt relieved that things turned out better than expected. The rest of the evening went well. Glenda seemed happy when she returned from the store. The kids cooked dinner perfectly, and the strawberry ice cream for dessert was delicious. There was no opportunity for Glenda to speak with them, as I was always with them. After the cleanup, we said our goodbyes, and Glenda approached me for a conversation. You seem to be in a good mood, Hank. It's nice to see you smile so much, she said. The kids always make me happy. How could I not smile when they're around? I heard that they were going to talk to you while I was at the store. They didn't seem angry with you, so can I assume the conversation went well, and that they convinced you to see things my way? They didn't take sides, Glenda. They love us both equally. I think we did a great job raising them, don't you? Somehow I got the impression that you would be on my side or be left alone. I don't know where you got that idea, Glenda. Maybe you should check with your source again. Anyway, I'm going to take a shower and change. It's been a long day. I left her to think as I headed for the bathroom. I wondered what Elise's attitude would be after her conversation with Glenda. You're just being stubborn and can't let go of your pride. Glenda exclaimed as I entered the den. Well, I guess it's a good thing you discovered that about me before wasting any more of your time with this so-called stubbornness. I'm sure your friend will be everything you want in a partner since I'm obviously not good enough for you. She disregarded my comment and continued her attack. So, you really asked Brenda? You should confirm the facts before making accusations. I used that as a teaching moment. After the kids heard my perspective, they told me they were neutral. I have never been and would never be with Brenda. I suggest you ask Brenda herself if you doubt my word. She was angry because using the kids against me didn't go as she planned. I sat down and started flipping through the channels. She stormed off to our bedroom and slammed the door. I hoped she would stay there for the rest of the night. Another week went by with tension between us. I could tell that Glenda was growing more frustrated, but we managed to coexist somewhat peacefully in the house. We still didn't eat meals together, and I took care of my own chores. She went out one Saturday night and didn't return until late. I assumed she visited her friends, but I didn't ask. My lack of interest seemed to annoy her. On Monday morning, the company president, Graylin Zekidlo, was waiting for me in my office. It was rare for me to interact with someone of his position. Good morning, sir. What can I do for you? I greeted politely. It's Hank, right? Hank Greenlee? Yes, sir, that's me. Hank, I've heard great things about you from Dennis. He speaks highly of your work and character. I try to stay informed about the company, and I wanted to let you know that you're a valued employee. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, especially coming from you. Yes, but I have another matter to discuss with you. Of course, sir. Please go ahead. Hank, do you know Brian McFadden? I know a Brian McFadden, sir. He has the same name as my wife's father. That's correct. He happens to be my golf partner and we've known each other for years. Brian never mentioned that you were his son-in-law or that you worked here. He wanted you to succeed on your own, and you have. I respect that about both of you. However, Brian brought something to my attention that I think is worth discussing. He said that you and his daughter are going through a rough patch. He also mentioned that his daughter has a terminal illness. Is that true? Yes, sir, it is, but he interrupted me. As a father, Brian wants his daughter to be happy during her final weeks. As a father yourself, I'm sure you understand his sentiment. Anyway, he asked me to check in with you and see how you're doing. Sometimes we have to put our ego aside and take care of our loved ones. Performance evaluations involve character as well as job performance, you know. I did my best to remain calm and collected throughout the conversation. I assured him that I was doing everything I could to support Glenda during this difficult time. After he left, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Glenda's words and actions had impacted my professional life as well. I was shocked. My father-in-law was throwing me under the bus for his daughter. I couldn't blame him, but I couldn't tolerate bullying or blackmail in my workplace either. I didn't want to upset my CEO any further, so I responded. Of course, sir. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll take care of it, I offered. See that you do, son. I don't want to have this conversation with you a second time. I assure you, sir. After today, you will not have any reason or need to follow up. Thank you for your timely advice. My boss, Graylin Zekadlo, left my small office very pleased with himself that he had solved his good friend's problem by taking charge. After he was out of sight and headed to the elevator toward his office, I typed up my formal resignation on my office computer, effective immediately, and printed it out. I gathered up all of my personal belongings, which easily fit in a small cardboard box, and took it to my car. Next, I swung by Human Resources, handed them my resignation, confirmed it in person, turned in my ID badge, and left my office building for the last time. While this tactic solved two problems, isolating me from the problematic ex-friend and eliminating my father-in-law's influence to correct my behavior toward his daughter, it created another. I was now among the ranks of the unemployed. What's more, I would be unable to use my former employer as a reference by not working a notice. It appeared as though I would have plenty of time to plan my next steps. Since it was still early in the day, I drove home and spent the day working on projects around the house. Glenda arrived home after a day at work at her usual time. You beat me home today. How did that happen, sweetheart? I gave her a look of surprise for using an affectionate term. Well, if you must know, I quit my job today. You what? She exclaimed. Yeah, it seems your dad had it in for me, so I was left with no other choice, I calmly explained. My dad? How can you suggest that my dad made you quit your job? Since you asked, I learned today that your dad regularly golfs with the CEO of my company, Graylin Zekadlo. Turns out, Mr. Zekadlo was in my office first thing this morning venting to me that your dad has been complaining to him on the golf course about how I've been treating you, given your difficult situation. Mr. Zekadlo made it clear that unless I improved things at home with you to your dad's satisfaction, my future employment could be at risk. He threatened me with negative performance evaluations that would affect my career growth or even result in demotion. As you know, I don't take threats lightly. Even if I became your dream husband again, the damage is already done. The CEO of our company sees me in a negative light. There's no chance for me to recover from that. So I resigned, and here I am. How dare you blame my dad for you losing your job? You're a quitter, Hank. Why don't you just admit it? You quit on me, quit on our marriage, and you've quit your job. And now you want to blame my dad for your failures. He's a better man than you'll ever be, she fumed. I see. My mistake. I apologize for being honest with you. Don't worry, I won't make that mistake again. Let me see. Since I didn't quit my job because of anything your dad said to my boss, then how about this as a reason? My big toe hurt today, so I quit. How about that? Is that a better reason in your eyes? You jerk. Why do you have to be so stubborn about everything? Why can't you forgive me and let us get on with our normal happy lives again before it's too late? Why on earth do you want to be with an unforgiving, stubborn jerk like me? It makes no sense. In your eyes, that piece of junk ex-friend is a much better man than I'll ever be. Why don't you move in with them and enjoy the remaining time you have left? He was the last one you had a great time with. I bet he would volunteer to have more fun with you. Why stick around with me if I'm such a loser? Because I love you and only you, Hank. Regardless of everything that's been said or done, you're the only man I have ever truly loved. You're just too blind to see it, she stated frustratingly. We were both stuck, she and her professed love for me, and me and my stubborn refusal to accept her infidelity. We remained at an impasse. I'm going to get something to eat. I'll be back after a while. Why don't you call your dad while I'm gone and see if he can get somebody to help me with the situation? I said, dripping with sarcasm. I thought she was out of tears. I was wrong. I left the house alone to avoid more drama and have a peaceful meal out. Evidently, she did call her father while I was out and she was waiting for me to return. I'm sorry, Hank. I had no idea my father would use his friendship with your boss to try to pressure or intimidate you. As much as I love my dad and appreciate what he was trying to do, messing with someone's career isn't right. His heart was in the right place. I take full responsibility because I hadn't told him the whole truth about my part in our problems. I figured as much. Look, I understand why your dad would try to use whatever influence he had to help you. You know I'd do anything to help our kids. I get that. But I thought he was a better man than that. Now I learned that he didn't have all the facts. Well, I'm going to fix that if I can, and Dad's going to help me unless he never wants to see me again, she explained. What do you mean, Glenda? How can you fix anything about my career? I've made a decision. Tomorrow morning, I'm turning in my resignation from my job. I don't need to work a notice because I won't need another job anyway. Dad and I are going to put our heads together with yours to help you find a better job than the one you had. It's our fault that you were put in a difficult position, so it falls to us to make it right. Daddy knows a lot of people besides your boss. He'll reach out to them for help, and so will I. We're going to do our best to find the perfect job for you and make this right. Is that okay? This is a surprise. I was expecting more conflict, but this is unexpected. I have no idea what my options are, but I'm happy to accept help from you both. Thank you. I convinced Dad to take a vacation week and use it to help us. I'm either going to find you another job or die trying, she jokingly said. True to his word, Brian was at our house bright and early the next morning. He rode with Glenda to work as she resigned from her job. She had planned on resigning within a few weeks anyway, and was relieved to skip the goodbye party they would have held for her when she left. When they returned, our house became job central. That week, all three of us were constantly on the phone with all known business contacts. Getting and setting up interviews was easy, but we wanted each interview to be a legitimate opportunity and not just a long shot. The economy was shrinking at the time, and well-paying job openings were hard to come by. I must have gone on a dozen interviews that week, as they kept up the pressure to assist me in finding the right fit. I had never seen Glenda so dedicated to a task before. She had a fierce determination to keep her word to me that was unlike anything she had shown in the past. Surprisingly, the most unexpected help came from Brian himself. He reached out to Graylin Zekadlo and explained that he had misunderstood his daughter's situation and acted hastily to pressure me. He apologized for his role in costing me my job and clarified that my return to my previous position was not an option. Grayland expressed his regret at losing me and reprimanded his golf partner for jumping to conclusions. He also said he would make a few phone calls to see what he could do on my behalf. We were shocked to receive a call from Wellington Enterprises, Inc. 45 minutes later, they were in need of a new purchasing manager. They are a custom manufacturer that turns inventors' ideas into reality. Investors back the inventors' new product ideas, and Wellington brings the product to life. Creating custom manufacturing for a variety of products is not easy, but they've established themselves in the industry. We were told that most of the products failed to succeed in the market, but the ones that did made all the other attempts worthwhile. When I interviewed with them the next day, it almost felt like a formality. The previous 3 purchasing managers had been exposed for dishonest practices. They were specifically looking for someone with honesty and integrity for this role. The strong recommendation from Graylin Zakadlo seemed to have a significant impact. My starting salary would be a 35% increase from my previous job under Mr. Zakadlo. He truly stood by his word. I would start my new career in 3 weeks after they finished letting go of the dishonest employees. I thanked Brian and Glenda sincerely for their support and assistance in helping me secure this amazing opportunity. They both expressed that it was the least they could do considering their involvement in costing me my previous job. Brian and I rebuilt our relationship. He acknowledged that before her affair, I had always been a great husband to his daughter. He also admitted that many men would have abandoned their wives in similar circumstances, leaving Glenda without a partner to support her through her final days. He teared up as he shook my hand firmly, regaining his respect for the person he knew me to be. It was as if Glenda had been holding on just long enough to see me through securing my new job. The next day, she collapsed in pain and became severely ill. I rushed her to the hospital, where they explained that this was the normal progression of her illness. Her oncologist sent her home with various medications, including painkillers to help manage her symptoms and keep her comfortable. When news got out, she had many visitors who wanted to say their final goodbyes. I did my best to accommodate everyone and organize the visits to ensure a calm and orderly atmosphere. One afternoon, Glenda told me that Bob and Teresa wanted to visit her, along with their children, Charlene, Joe, Evelyn. I told her that I understood and would make the arrangements. She knew what that meant. I called Elise, told her that I had some errands to take care of, which was true, and asked her if she could arrange to be with her mom and set up the requested visitation, and to text me after they had all left. She said she would take care of it and let me know when that would be. My daughter is very insightful. It worked well, and I avoided the negative interaction. That visit opened Elise's eyes. From that day on, our kids began spending much more time with her, knowing that her time was getting shorter. 2 weeks later, Glenda was so weak, she could no longer get up from the bed. Insurance allowed me to hire a nurse during the day, and I took over her care in the evenings once I returned home from my new job. She had become frail and was losing a lot of weight. She had a dedicated pain management system to help manage her discomfort. All she had to do was press a button and it would provide relief. She was no longer able to manage talking on the phone, so I turned it off and put it away. Everything now went through me. I was surprised to receive a call from Teresa to check on Glenda's condition and to express her concern about her inability to reach her on her phone. After I explained the situation, she requested that I allow them to visit her again. I told her that I didn't think it would be convenient or a good idea. She seemed saddened by that but didn't press me on the issue. The kids and their spouses were spending time in shifts to help me with her and to give me breaks from constant care from time to time. That was greatly appreciated. As her condition rapidly deteriorated, I offered to put her in hospice, but she was strongly opposed to that, firmly stating that she wanted to die at home with loved ones around and not in a room full of strangers. As much as it pained me, I granted her request. Glenda fell into a sleep from which she could not be awakened. I likened it to a coma-like state, realizing that her time was growing closer. One of the 4 kids was always around now, day and night, ready to make the call to the rest of us should there be a significant change. I was sitting in her room late one night, getting ready to go to bed myself. Suddenly, Glenda sat straight up in bed. She had been near catatonic for nearly 2 weeks, and here she was sitting up on her own. How she did it, I have no idea. She had a glow about her, and her face wore the sweetest smile I had ever seen. Then she spoke. "I'm sorry I hurt you, Hank. Please forgive me. I love you with all my heart." I immediately rushed to her side, gave her a hug, and said, "Of course I forgive you, Glenda. I love you too." She gently lay back down and fell fast asleep once again. I sensed this was it and called all the children in. They stayed with me as I held her hand. 4 hours later, she took her last breath. All of us cried and hugged each other, holding onto the life and love we all held for one another, a love passed down by her. I was exhausted as I made the arrangements. Al and Elise were a big help to me through it all. Glenda had made it easy for us by pre-planning nearly every detail in advance. She was cremated, and we held a memorial service at a nearby chapel. Elise nervously informed me that her mother had requested that Bob be allowed to speak at her service after the minister had done his part. She believed it would be too much to ask of me. I was stunned and unaware that she had made such arrangements without my knowledge, but the kids begged me to let her have her wish, even after her death. I agreed for their sake. At the service, There was an hour before it started when the family gathered to console each other and meet the visitors. I wasn't surprised to receive hugs from Charlene, Joe, Evelyn. They were our godchildren after all, and they had not done anything wrong. They had nothing to do with their parents' actions with my wife. I hugged them back, tearing up, realizing how much I still loved them. Even though they weren't related to me by blood, they were still family. Bob and Teresa kept their distance from me but spoke to everyone else. Brian was holding up better than I thought he would. He made it clear that he didn't want any distance between us, and I assured him that I felt the same. During the memorial service, Brenda, Alan's wife, sat on my left in the front row, holding my hand. Elise was on my right, holding my other hand. God, how I loved my children and appreciated the love that Glenda had instilled in them for family. The minister was kind and uplifting, delivering an inspiring message of hope and forgiveness. The music consisted of 3 songs that were close to Glenda's heart. Bob finally took the stage. Brenda and Elise tightly held onto my hands as they stood by my side. Bob said he'd been asked by Glenda to read a letter she had written. She must have given it to him the last time they had visited her when Elise was there. The letter was one of encouragement to all, advising everyone to make the most of the time we have as if it was our last. Without specifically referencing what she had done with Bob, she encouraged everyone to forgive one another as it was the kind thing to do. Lastly, she encouraged everyone to stay in touch with me and the children and to try to arrange for me to meet quality people to continue living a full and fruitful life. Everyone, including me, laughed at that. That was just like Glenda. When he had finished, Bob decided to include a negative comment. I've known Hank here longer than anyone else in this room. From the grave, his dear departed wife has begged us all to forgive one another. I stand before you all, admitting that I did something that might be considered wrong for all the right reasons. Hank here refuses to forgive me. We've been best friends since junior high school, yet he can't find it in his heart to forgive me this one mistake. As Bob continued speaking, Alan stood up and signaled to the minister, who nodded his head. Bob's microphone was immediately turned off. Brenda stood by her husband's side as Elise and Edward stood up, pulling me up with them. Alan then led the 5 of us out of the main chapel to the lobby. As we started to leave, Teresa, Charlene, Joe, Evelyn also stood up and walked out with us. Bob was shocked to see his own family abandon him as he was speaking. Alan explained, "Palparate." Charlene overheard her dad say that he might call you out from the stage. I had already arranged with the minister to cut his mic if he did. I talked to him firmly when he arrived not to say anything inappropriate, and he promised that he only wanted to say what Mom wanted him to say on her behalf. I didn't expect his family to leave with us. I looked at Charlene, who said, "I love my dad, and I love all of you too." What he was saying in there, well, it just wasn't right. We know the story, Uncle Hank. We know what they did was wrong, and we stand with you today. Your family too. I'm sorry that we haven't been close since that weekend. I love you all, even more now than before. You've shown me your true colors, and I like what I see. But you, Teresa? Hank, I'm sorry for my part in all this. All I can do is offer you my deepest apology, along with my condolences. What my husband said in there is wrong, and I do not support him in attacking you publicly like he did. I'm incredibly embarrassed. Please don't let his actions eat away at your happiness. You have such a wonderful family to support you. Find joy in them, she urged. Teresa, a wise person once told me, you can be bitter or better, but you can't be both. Teresa hugged me and held on as if her life depended on it. Yet she was still married to my nemesis, and she had made the terrible mistake of supporting his and Glenda's weekend getaway. I had no idea if I could ever move past that. Moments later, the doors opened and the crowd began leaving the chapel. Everyone who passed by us offered their sincere condolences. I asked the kids, including Charlene, Joe, Evelyn, to take all the flowers that had been brought for the service. They promised they would take care of it and thanked me. As I made my way back home, Charlene asked if she could come with me. Alan and Elise nodded in approval as she took my hand and led me to my car. She drove us to my house, where she prepared a delicious meal from all the dishes that friends had brought over. She cleaned up the kitchen spotlessly and kept me company until dinner time. As my kids arrived, Charlene gave me another big hug, told me she loved me, and begged me not to become a stranger. Charlene was a wonderful person and had been raised well. Over the next couple of weeks, Bob made several attempts at reconciliation. I turned down every one of his gestures. His kids joined mine twice over the summer at their various homes, inviting me to a family barbecue. No mention of Bob or Teresa was ever made. Contact became less frequent after that. Everyone has their own lives to live, and I felt no sadness about it. I immersed myself in my job, focusing on efficiently acquiring all necessary parts and components in a timely manner and at a reasonable cost. I had a team of 7, 3 of whom were recent hires. I led this group and was proud of how smoothly our operations were running. Everyone pulled their weight, and I considered them my work family. It had been just over a year since Glenda's passing when I received a mysterious text from Alan asking me to meet him at a fancy restaurant called Ches Roberto's Saturday night at 8, his treat. He mentioned that he was working on a special project, and he wanted his contact to meet me there. He asked that I dress nicely in a suit. I wondered what kind of special project he was getting involved in. Was he thinking of making a career change? I was happy that he wanted to include me in this aspect of his life. I took my best suit to the cleaners to be ready to meet this businessman. Ches Roberto's is an upscale restaurant that successful businessmen or couples often visit for special occasions. It is quite expensive, but has an excellent reputation for serving the most delicious drinks and dishes. I had never dined at Ches Roberto's before tonight. Alan had instructed me to give my name to the concierge when I arrived. He quickly confirmed the reservation and escorted me to my table. As we walked through the restaurant, I could feel the love and romance in the air as couples exchanged affectionate looks. There were also a few tables occupied by businessmen, which I assumed was where I was headed. Just as I thought we were passing by, the maitre d' halted and motioned for me to take a seat. "There must be some mistake, sir," I suggested. "Mais non, there is no mistake, sir, I assure you. May I assist you with your chair?" he offered. I pulled out the chair across from the woman I had admired earlier and took my seat. She appeared just as surprised as I was. "Hello, Teresa. Hank, what are you doing here?" she asked in earnest. "I'm guessing the same reason as you." "Let me guess, did Alan invite you here tonight?" "No, Charlene. I was to meet her here at 8. "Aha. And I was to meet Alan here at 8. I smell a rat." Right at that moment, both of our cell phones buzzed announcing incoming texts. We both read our respective messages. "Let me guess. Charlene is unavoidably detained and won't be able to make it tonight." "How did you?" "Oh, I see. Yes, we've been set up. It appears as though we've both been tricked by our children." The maitre d' stood by patiently as if he was waiting for something. "Teresa, since we're already here, would you like to go ahead and order something instead of wasting the night?" "No sense leaving now," she agreed. "We might as well go ahead and order. I've heard good things about this place." "Me too, sir." I looked at the maitre d'. "Of course, sir. Could we have 2 menus, sir?" "Oh, that won't be necessary, sir," as he clapped his hands twice to garner attention. Within moments, 3 of the waitstaff appeared from the kitchen bearing 3 full trays. Without making a single inquiry, they unloaded delicious-smelling dishes before us, as if they already knew what dish went where. Then they left as quickly as they had appeared. We were both stunned a second time. "How? When?" "But these are all my favorite dishes," Teresa exclaimed. "Mine too. It's almost as if someone who knew us both well pre-ordered for us, isn't it? Those rascals," she echoed. "I must say, if I'm going to be surprised, I can certainly think of worse things to be surprised with." "You're right about that," I said, acknowledging the double meaning that she had not intended. "I can guess why they set us up," she offered. "They knew you'd never contact me. You made it pretty clear how you felt about us when everything went down. And right now, as I think back on it all, I can't say that I blame you, Hank. Actually, I don't mind it so much since it's just you. But if he had been here with you, then I would have never sat down," I clarified. "He? You mean Bob? Are you saying you don't know?" The astonished woman asked. "Know what? Has something happened to him?" "I haven't talked to him since before Glenda passed, and the kids know better than to bring him up to me." "I see. Well, that explains it then. There's a lot of water that has gone under the bridge. Do you want to hear the story?" "Teresa, my evening's open. I have nothing else planned tonight. You've piqued my curiosity." "Very well, but I must warn you in advance that you might hear his name many times as I tell my story. It's been a little over a year now. I think I can handle it without getting upset. Go ahead, Teresa." About 3 weeks after Glenda's memorial service, Bob said he felt that something wasn't all right in Manland, so he went to see his regular doctor who sent him to a specialist. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. The only recommended treatment was a prostatectomy, the complete removal of his prostate gland. It was a radical surgery. The cancer was so far advanced that they had to make sure that not a single trace was left behind. During the invasive process, they severed numerous blood vessels as well as many nerves. This was shocking news to me. I hadn't heard about any of this. The kids had done a great job of protecting me from any new information about his status. She noticed the expression of surprise on my face and continued, "I hope you will forgive my honesty, Hank, but I've been such close friends with you and Glenda that I have no problem sharing personal details with you." I nodded my agreement. After the surgery, he received regular radiation treatments that took its toll on him mentally and emotionally. At first, Bob worked hard at taking care of my needs using other methods. I think it helped his confidence. Eventually, his frustration with his condition took over, and he soon gave up on trying anything else with me. He told me that I could buy all the items I wanted to take care of myself. He became severely depressed but refused to participate in counseling therapy. As a result, Bob became angry and verbally abusive from abusing alcohol. When he lost his job, everything changed from bad to worse. He started hurting me. I refused to remain a victim. 3 strikes and he was out. My divorce from Bob was granted just last week. Hank, I haven't been with a man for the better part of a year. My mind was racing upon hearing everything that they'd been through. Although I would never say the words out loud, I immediately thought them about Bob. Karma is a tough one. My thoughts then returned to the vision of beauty seated before me. I didn't know Teresa. Quite frankly, I don't know what to say. I had no idea about his diagnosis, nor his mistreatment of you. Thinking back, I feel foolish and petty now, having turned my back on you two. I wish I had been there for you. You don't deserve what happened to you, any more than you deserve what happened to you, Hank. It looks as if we both got a difficult situation. I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. We can't change the past, but maybe we can do something about the future. I rose, moved my chair next to hers, leaned over, and gave her a hug. She was as receptive as I was. Right after our hug ended, we heard a group of people leap to their feet and exclaim, "Yes," as they pumped their arms fervently in the air. It was then that we noticed all of our kids and their spouses collectively seated at a large table in the far corner of the room where they could observe us without being discovered. We laughed ourselves silly until our sides hurt, until we could hardly catch our breath. The sweetness of our kids' gesture, coupled with the love Teresa and I had shared over the years, and the challenges we had both faced and overcome, bonded us together in a unique way, one in which the dark clouds were lifted from both of our lives and sunshine once again prevailed. We told the kids that they still had to pay the bill. The funny thing is that all 5 couples fought fiercely for the privilege to pay it.